Welcome. I'm Sebastian Mahfood, and you're listening to WCAT Radio, the on-air wing of En Route Books and Media, bringing you the dulcet sounds of Catholic wisdom.
Hi, I'm Kevin Vost with a new gift-giving idea. Are you trying to convince someone that God really does exist and that God really does care about them? Do you wish you could just hand someone a book that would prove God really does love them and that he really wants to be their friend? Well, there's a book out now that does just that. To find it, Google this title, Tony's 50,000 Co-incidence Miracles. You'll find it instantly. Just Google Tony's 50,000 Co-incidence Miracles. That's Tony's 50,000 Co-incidence Miracles.
We're on page 124 now, and the miracle is titled, My Wonderful Wife, Julie, Passed Away After 53 Years. My beloved wife, Julie, had gotten ill on Holy Thursday of Easter Holy Week, which is the commemorative day for the Last Supper in the Bible. This was on April 17th in the year 2014. After that, she was ill and in and out of surgery for 4 months. There was spine surgery, kidney surgery, liver biopsy, lung biopsy, and there were all the doctor visits and prepping and recoveries surrounding each surgery. By the 4th month of the process, we finally heard some good news, and that she was doing amazingly well in spite of all the cancer scares that we had faced day after day for 4 months. And she looked really healthy and looked really well now, too, after 4 months of looking really worn out and weak. So we had a great hope now, based on how things looked at this point. Then about 5 days later, the doctor called and said that cancer had spread into the blood system, and the best Julie could hope for was maybe 18 months longer to live, but only if she would immediately enter into the 6-month-long chemotherapy program he prescribed. He said that if she did not enter the program, that she might have only 6 to 10 months left. She took 24 hours to pray about it, and she decided that she would not enter the chemotherapy program. I was sad at what this meant, but I could see that she had her mind made up, and talking about it did not help. Jesus inspired me to be quiet and be still, and to support and comfort Julie in this difficult decision. We could talk more about it later on as things progressed. Jesus basically got me to realize that Julie needed time to be close to Jesus as she was adjusting to this very difficult decision. It was hard on me as a husband who wanted to protect her by nature, yet was unable to by ability. But Jesus got me to understand and to wait. 2 days later, the doctor called again and said that the latest test indicated that she had only just a few weeks to live. The 6 to 10 months we had thought she might have just now became only a few weeks. Within just 2 more days' time, we were then told that Julie only had 1 day longer to live, and perhaps really only a few hours left. The past 5 days felt like a roller coaster ride of steady, bad, and shocking news. And now they're telling us we just have hours left. This 4-month period was all very stressful and exhausting for both of us, certainly more for Julie. We had many doctors to talk to and surgeries and recoveries to go in and out of, and then going into and out of the nursing homes for a few times too. But now we were home with hospice nurses helping us cope with the final 24 hours. Our heads and our hearts were spinning from how fast we went from expecting we had possibly 10 more months to spend together, suddenly only having perhaps a few hours left. Our children came to stay with us and watch and to comfort their mom in these final hours, and they encouraged me to go and nap for a while, assuring me that they would call me if anything changed or if they needed me. I was grateful for the help and support, and I did need the rest, so I went to catch up on some sleep. At roughly 4:30 a.m., I heard Jesus in my soul, while I was sleeping, awaken me as I slept. And Jesus said, "You need to go and see Julie now. It is almost 4:44 a.m. I opened my eyes, I looked at the clock, it was about 4:33 by then. I know this sounds so totally unbelievable, but it did happen exactly that way. I heard Jesus say, "You need to go see Julie now, it's almost 4:44. I got up quickly and went to be with Julie, and it was not very long afterward where she began to take her last 3 breaths. I was stunned because it seemed as if this was a dream. I had never seen anyone pass away before, and this was extremely hard because it was my beloved wife, Julie, my better half for the past 53 years. I began to talk to her, to comfort her, because I was taught that people can hear sounds and voices during these final moments of life. Julie was in a comatose state at this point. I watched in sadness to see her taking her last 3 amazing, long and slow and very deep breaths. It was so amazing to me that she seemed so relaxed and so calm and so totally at peace. And I felt the close presence of Jesus and Mary there with us during Julie's final 3 last breaths. After Julie exhaled for the 3rd time, everything stopped, and I knew she had passed on to be with Jesus. I was sad, but I also felt a very peaceful, godly presence too. I can't explain it in human terms, but I am positive that I felt the peace of heaven as I saw Julie taking her last 3 deep, long breaths in such a peaceful way. I had seen her put up with a lot over the past 4 months in surgeries and recoveries and all the poking and testing she had to endure, with her normal, beautiful attributes of great peace and great patience. I had seen her at her very best level of patience and peace during those 4 months. But this ending peace was a peace which really, really surpassed understanding, as the Bible says. I feel certain that she knew she was going to heaven, and I sense in my soul that she saw something in those final moments which gave her the peaceful expressions which I could clearly recognize on her face. I still miss her terribly, and it's been 3 years now since then. But I am so happy for her to be where she is with Jesus now. I keep imagining how wonderfully happy she is in heaven as I go on now without her nearby. Exactly after Julie's last breath, Jesus asked me to look at my watch, and it was exactly 4:44 a.m. I basically had 11 minutes from the time I approached her to where she passed away. In history, authors have used the number 444 to indicate the holy name of the Blessed Virgin Mary. My wife had a strong devotion to the Blessed Virgin and often slept with the rosary in her hand. In addition, Julie had also gone to Medjugorje, where the Blessed Virgin Mary has reportedly been appearing to villagers there ever since 1981. My sadness for my loss at this moment seemed to be held captive by the miracle I had just experienced at 4:44 a.m., and by the miraculous peace I had just noticed on Julie's face. I was sort of frozen in time at this moment. I had just been lovingly awakened by Jesus precisely on time at 4:33 in order to be by Julie's side as she was to take her last breaths, and also as I believe Jesus was coming with the Blessed Virgin Mary to take my wife Julie into eternity at the holy moment of 4:44 a.m. Julie and I had talked often of how Jesus and Mary do come to get their faithful friends at their moments of death, so we both knew what these final moments might be like, although I had never witnessed a person dying before in my life. In addition, Julie had always stressed to me how sad she was in her life because she had missed being with her dad by just a few minutes when he had passed away, and she would often cry about it when telling me how empty it had made her feel in life to have been perhaps just 3 minutes away from him as she was driving toward his hospital bed when he passed into eternity many years earlier. Incidentally, she was 3 minutes late because she had done a favor for someone to help someone on the way in to see her dad. Something inside of me convinced me that Jesus and Julie did not want me to feel the same sadness that Julie had felt by missing her dad's final passing, and that is probably why I heard the voice of Jesus awaken me to go to be by her side 11 minutes before she was about to enter heaven. Over the next few weeks, I was able to release my sadness a little bit each day, and as I did so, I was always comforted by the memory of being awakened by Jesus to be present with Julie at exactly 4:44 a.m. as she entered into eternity, because 4:44 is the holy number indicating the Blessed Virgin Mary's name. I firmly believe that Jesus was taken into heaven on August 6, 2014, at 4:44 a.m., to be with all the saints and angels now. It is especially meaningful to me that this date, 2014, was the feast day of the miraculous transfiguration of Jesus, which commemorates the day when Jesus appeared among some of his apostles on earth while radiating the light and appearing to them as if he was an angelic and holy being on Mount Tabor. Somehow, I have come to understand that my beloved Julie was also transfigured on this feast day as she entered into heaven now as a new creation and as a spiritual being. August 6th, when she passed away, was the holy feast day of the transfiguration of Jesus. Over the next year, I was awakened precisely and exactly at 4:44 a.m., and no less than 50 times in the following year, sometimes even twice a week. This was a very great gift from Jesus to remind me so often that Jesus was okay and happy with him and the Blessed Virgin Mary as I was adjusting to my life to struggle and to get along without Julie. After 53 years of being with a person every day, it is a serious, heartfelt loss when they leave us. I can't explain it now because I do not fully understand it myself, but I feel something like a part of my being is now walking around in the kingdom of heaven. I feel like Julie is just on the other side of a very thin veil that separates us somehow, which keeps me from seeing her. I feel as if one day the veil will open and there she will be, immediately and precisely on the other side of this thin veil. I hope you will glorify God with me now in all of this and in what I'm about to write here below, because on March 14th in 2017, just after I had finished typing the above paragraph, I immediately took a break and I wound up reading some of the March 2017 issue of the Catholic Transcript magazine from the Archdiocese of Hartford, Connecticut. I wound up reading pages 21 and 22 in that magazine entitled, the title was, a holy death. That's a holy death. Significantly, the article is a recap of a woman who died on October 9th, 2016, and who had also been devoted to the Blessed Virgin Mary. The article spoke about how this lady said that she did see the Blessed Virgin Mary coming to take her to heaven as she was passing away. And then it said that she, Mrs. Dubé, it said she passed away at 4:44 a.m. Jesus nudged me to read that magazine article at precisely the right moment, after Jesus had led me to first type the above page about my beloved Julie's passing at 4:44 a.m. before I went to take a break. Jesus assures me that Mrs. Doobie did indeed pass away at 4:44 a.m. Thank you, Jesus, for leading me to this amazing Catholic Transcript magazine as a confirmation of Julie's passing, and exactly as I was typing this miracle. This miracle surely tells me that I am supposed to be typing up this book on this particular day. I just finished typing that Julie passed at 4:44. I take a break. I read a magazine that says another woman passed at 4:44, and she also saw the Blessed Virgin Mary coming to take her to heaven. One of the promises of the Blessed Virgin Mary is that she will be with us at the moment of our death if we are devoted to saying her rosary while we are alive. Julie was very devoted to saying her rosary every day, so I am very certain that the Blessed Virgin came to help her enter into eternity at 4:44 a.m. on that day. Here is some amazing information about things I did notice after my beloved wife Julie passed away. These are amazing things. The last check number in her checkbook, before she would have to order more blank checks, meaning she would be out of checks after she wrote this last check. Well, the last check was number 4440. That's 4440, 4,440, but it is 444. That would have been her last check. And she passed away at 4:44 on August 6th. The next thing is, the last outstanding check from her last bank reconciliation, which she was waiting for to come in yet, was a check in the amount of $4.44. The next thing was, she had 2 small bottles of cosmetic products from Johnson & Johnson, which she used, which both have contents notes on them, which state contents are 444 milligrams. Her computer password was revised by her just 1 week before she passed away, and she had her password end in the numbers 444. Next, 3 people who were personally very close to Julie called me within a couple of weeks of her funeral and told me that they were awakened at 4:44 a.m. at least once since the funeral. Next, as you already know from the above miracle story, Julie passed into eternity at exactly 4:44, and that number is the number used to indicate the blessed and holy name of the Blessed Virgin Mary. Next, the Catholic Transcript ran an article about Mrs. Dubé, which I mentioned above, who also passed away at 4:44. And that article did indicate that Mrs. Dubé said that she experienced the Blessed Virgin Mary coming to help her into heaven at 4:44 in the morning. Next, tradition tells us that the Blessed Virgin Mary has promised to be with us at the moment of our death if we are dedicated to saying her rosary, which Julie surely was. So this miracle story really had about 11 miracles all totaled in one story. Thank you, Jesus, for all of your great kindness to Julie and me in this entire 444 miraculous event, Lord. Most especially, Jesus, I sincerely thank you for waking me precisely on time to sense you be welcoming Julie into heaven with your mother, the Blessed Virgin Mary. We are now on page 135. We're going to begin chapter 6. Chapter 6 has miracles related to church-related miracles. After discovering that God really did love me by the evidence of so many coincidence miracles which He has sent to me in my life, I began to form a habit of spending time with Jesus in prayer at His church. I would stop by during the day, and especially when I had problems to solve in life. I have found these church visits to be of great value in my life. Sure, Jesus is everywhere, of course, but we need to get away from the noise and the distractions of our daily activities sometimes. Humans have always sought out a holy and blessed place to sit and pray alone with God throughout all of history. It can be on a very high mountaintop, or in temples, in churches, in cemeteries, and many other places. But it always helps to know that the place was dedicated and blessed by priests through a special and holy dedication process and ceremony. Even Catholic cemeteries are spiritually blessed and dedicated to God in holiness when they are created and opened. The Church also keeps the Holy Blessed Sacrament enshrined in a tabernacle inside of its churches for all to visit and to sense Christ's presence when they enter. I hope the miracles shared in the following section do help to convince some readers that God does bless us for honoring His church and other holy places of worship which have been prayerfully consecrated to God and to His saints here on earth. The first miracle is called God's directional GPS within us. I was working as a teammate on a Catholic Coscia weekend retreat. There were about 20 men attending that retreat, and there were another 20 men working as the retreat team. Coscia, for those of you who do not know, is a non-denominational Christian movement which was born in Spain and which began to spread from Texas across the USA in the 1970-1980 period. Coscia, which means a short lesson in Christianity, uses a weekend retreat to explain how we can become good, close friends and brothers with Jesus by spending time with Jesus, and also by spending time with other like-minded men who also wish to befriend Jesus. There are also similar retreats for women, where women are shown how to become close friends and sisters with Jesus as well. The following miracle is about one of the men's retreats I worked on during this 1970 to 1980 period. At the end of the retreat weekend, the retreat teammates used their cars to drive all the retreatants to a wrap-up building and to the final ceremony, usually held in a church, where the Holy Mass is celebrated and where final talks are given to send all the men back into the world after they have spent a weekend getting a lot of peace, joy, and camaraderie with other men who all have experienced Jesus as a personal friend. I was new to this area of Connecticut, and I did not know my way around, and this was way back in 1977 before iPhones and GPS systems were invented. So I asked some of the team members to be sure not to drive off too quickly out of the parking lot and to not lose me as we drove over to the church in our carpool caravan after the retreat. I was told that the church we were using for the wrap-up was about a 30-minute drive from where we were having the retreat. They assured me that they would keep their eyes on me and in their rearview mirror and stopped to let me catch up if the traffic separated us on the way over so that I wouldn't get lost. I wound up with only one retreatant with me in my car for this carpool caravan to move from the retreat house to the church. Surprisingly, there was only one car left in the parking lot when I got there. Everyone else had taken off, and this last car was leaving just as I got to my car. So I rushed quickly to catch up to it, but it got away from me. It got away quickly because the driver was obviously late and wanted to catch up with the team that already left. He was not one of the men who agreed to let me follow him, so he just dashed off assuming that I must be okay. Matters got worse now because after I pulled out of the parking lot, I realized we were in the outskirts of town and in a heavily forested area, which was far from the main roads, with no way to get directions, and the car I was chasing had already turned left or right somewhere, so that I did not know which way to turn after I pulled out of the parking lot. I pulled over and sensed Jesus telling me that he would guide me to drive to the correct place, but I had never been there. This was heavily forested, and it was very lightly populated with very few houses in my pathway. Worst yet, I found out later that I also had to cross through about 5 four-way stop intersections, so I was never sure if I should turn left or right or go straight in all of the 5 four-way stops that I was going to be meeting with. So Jesus inspired me to ask my co-pilot, the retreatant, to pray with me for the wisdom of which way to go at each stop sign. So at each stop sign, we'd stop and prayed and then turned left or right or went straight whenever we both got the same inspirations from God at each stop sign. Fortunately, the weekend retreat did cover this process and the techniques, so my co-pilot knew that it was a process we could use. Fortunately, I did not have to convince him to pray for directions. Well, after driving for about 25 minutes and not seeing any of the team on the road, I began to doubt I was really getting my directions from God. I began to doubt even though my co-pilot and I were getting the same inspirations about which way to turn at each intersection. I just figured that we could both just be wrong. The devil is very good at coming to tempt us to doubt, like this at these moments when we are most vulnerable. At the very next four-way stop sign, I prayed, but with deep doubts, and we got a sense to turn right. So I took a deep breath and expected complete failure because I had no idea where I was or if I had driven in the completely wrong direction for the past 25 minutes. We had spent a lot of time trusting in Jesus and going only where our consciences had made us feel that God was nudging us to go, straight, left, or right. And every time I took a right or left turn, I had the feeling that I might be now headed in the wrong direction. Wow. I mean, wow. There it was. Right there as we turned right, we saw all of the team's cars and all of the men rushing into the church. Jesus even left us one parking spot right next to the road and right next to the main entrance of the church. My passenger said, "You know, you should move to Hollywood. You had me so convinced you were lost all during that ride." That was really very funny to me. My passenger really thought I was kidding. He has never believed me, even though I try to convince him every time I see him. What a joy this was. I have used this same GPS method often ever since then because Jesus can always direct us if we ask him what to do and where to go, if we have a little faith and don't let the devil give us doubt. Please let us glorify God together about this miracle. We had stopped at 5 four-way stop intersections over a 30-minute time span. and trusted that Jesus would help us to turn right or left or go straight ahead. Jesus absolutely did guide us at each stop sign, and we arrived on time. Psalm 32 states, I will instruct you and teach you the way you should go. I will counsel you with my eye upon you. We are on page 141 now. The next miracle title is God Opens Doors for Us. Let us begin. As a business consultant and coach over the past 15 years, I have visited many cities and states in the USA, and I had many opportunities to visit many beautiful churches in that time. Many times in my life, I have felt the call of Jesus to come in for a visit as I was passing by a church. On several occasions, when I was asked to come inside, I would have to seek for a parking spot nearby within the city limits and walk back to the church, especially in very busy cities like New York, New Haven, or Hartford, Connecticut. But then I would get to the front door and find it locked. If I had walked a long distance, I would become perplexed at how could I be called to come in only to find the door locked. And then sadness would come over me because I had expected to have another wonderful, inspiring visit with Jesus and now could not even get inside. I would naturally wonder if I was only imagining Jesus calling me in, so I would begin to doubt that Jesus had ever talked to me at all in the first place. The devil is always tricky, trying to get us to doubt the truths about God and God's loving friendship with all of us who try to befriend God. The first few times this happened, I would walk away saddened and hurt and doubtful. But one day, I got an inspiration to go and try all of the doors before I would walk away. And honestly, it was a day where I had problems I needed to talk to Jesus about, so I felt like I might be justified to be annoyed if I could not get inside on this special day. There were 5 other doors to try after I found the front door locked. So I proceeded to go around, door after door, trying to get inside, and when I got to the very last door, I found that someone had not pulled the door totally shut, because I could see the door was slightly open, and the latch near the door handle had not fallen into the hole on the door frame. So the door was just dangling there, waiting for me to carefully, very, very carefully, grab the door and not let the bolt slip into the lock. I sensed the holy fear of thinking that perhaps Jesus or an angel was on the other side. Perhaps they had mercifully come to open the door for me, since this was the last door, and I was pretty sad and running out of hope by the time I got there to open it. I also imagined that God or one of his angels had set the door up for me, just based on the way the door bolt was just dangling there, and only a light breeze would have caused the door to lock. Well, I got inside, and nobody was there except Jesus, both spiritually and also present in the tabernacle in the form of the Holy Eucharistic bread. Again, I know Jesus is present everywhere, but in a church, in a Catholic church, he is also there in the form of this Holy Eucharistic bread, by his design at the Last Supper. I always have the most amazing talks with Jesus there in his church, and Jesus makes me so comfortable and certain that I am indeed a friend of God. Just sitting there listening to Jesus speak to my heart and soul obviously gives me, and anyone else too, great strength and courage. I have approached locked churches no less than 20 times now over the last 20 years, and practically every time, if I check all the doors, Jesus arranges for one door to open for me. I think that in 20 times now, only twice were the doors locked. And that was because Jesus was teaching me a lesson at the time. In about 5 of these 20 times, I had other people with me as witnesses to confirm this great loving miracle gift from God. In one case, Jesus had me tell a friend who came with me to visit to check one side of the church doors while I checked the other side. When we both arrived at the back of the church, after finding all the doors locked, Jesus assured me that there was one door open on my friend's side of the building. Gently, so as not to offend my friend, I asked him to please let me double-check because I felt like Jesus was going to allow us to get inside. I had taken this friend here from his busy schedule to show him a precious piece of artwork inside, and it took us 40 minutes to get here. My friend said, "Sure, go ahead," but I did really carefully check all the doors already. I could sense my friend was hurt that I sounded like I doubted him, so we checked my side again first, and then went to his side next. My friend followed me, and when I got to the first door to check it, it was ajar. This meant that someone, maybe God, had opened it up for us after my friend had already passed by earlier. My friend was now very positive this was a miracle, and I told him that I absolutely agree because I have seen these ajar door moments many, many times in my life before.
We hope you enjoyed the program and will join us back for another show on WCAT.